Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Let's Get Into It. It's a very special day today.
Very special day. I'm very excited.
We've been doing these for a while. We've had Antoine Fisher on.
Yep.
We've had
Emilio Rivera. We've had Frankie Quinones. We've had Dean. We've had
Walter Batt. So we've talked about legal. We've talked with actors. We've talked with directors. Yeah, we've spoken to writers that have made it big, like Antoine Fisher, who is now a director.
Filmmakers, Daddy A.
And you know what's coming next, which I'm excited to talk about, is we've got Caroline Kepnes coming.
Right.
We've got Edward James Olmos coming.
Yeah.
We've got Tommy Harper coming, the executive producer of Star Wars Episode 7 or 6.
Top Gun.
And Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
This is getting good. And today we have a very special guest.
Today's a good day.
Yeah, today is going to be a really interesting day. Before we get into our guest, let me ask you, how's it going with the movie?
The movie is going pretty good.
What's the name of the movie now?
Now it's Made in Mexico.
All right, so what's happening with Made in Mexico? Where is it at now?
Made in Mexico, I saw the first 16 minutes. It looked good. A little rough on the transitions, but that's okay. Corresponded with Sammy yesterday. That's Joel's person.
Award-winning music supervisor who's now working on your film.
You remember the group NoFX?
Okay. The punk rock band.
Yeah, the punk rock band. Well, the guitar player, El Jefe, that's what he went by. It looks like he's going to be doing our composing.
Wait, is that from Sammy and from...
Yes, they're excited.
Joel?
It's really good.
Right. Well, I just want to get to that first, and then I want to introduce Wings Nichols, who's with us today.
Everybody knows Wings is here. He's always here.
And then I want to thank Davey Dave for all the work on the Instagram page.
Yeah, good looking.
You did a trailer. Pretty amazing.
In a world.
And all of the pictures of our guests, I'm getting... lots of texts from people going like, dude, you made me look amazing. Davey Dave's making him look amazing. Really appreciate that. Today's guest has a story for you because her life seems to coincide with everything that we're doing around here. And it's 6 degrees, maybe even 3 degrees of separation. All right. So I want to introduce Ann Lewis Roberts, ALR.
ALR!
Hi. Nice to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being here.
Hey.
Davey Dave. So, Ann, did you ever want to be involved in show business when you were little?
I did. I grew up in San Pedro in a Catholic Italian household, and I wanted to get out of town. No, I wanted to figure out what was next, and I thought I was going to be a writer. What I wanted to do was write. So I wrote a lot of stories and poetry, and that was my dream, to be a writer. I
mean, because from where you were to where you are is pretty remarkable, and how you got there is also inspiring and remarkable. You got accepted to Long Beach State University, which is where Steven Spielberg went.
Right.
You went there, and your major was what?
Broadcast journalism.
There was a sign up on the wall or somewhere that said internships available at
Entertainment Tonight.
So you picked that up and you said, hey, this is entertainment. This is Hollywood. I want to go check that out.
That's a big commute. Long Beach to entertainment up to Hollywood?
Yeah, it was about an hour every morning, and the first meeting was at 6 a.m. So I would get up and leave about 5, put my makeup on in the car, and go to Paramount.
So how did you get the job? What happened?
So I went and I had the meeting with the internship coordinator, and she said, hey, here's the internship. It was amazing. I drove into the arches at Paramount, and I thought, oh my God, I have arrived. This is official. I don't care how far I have to drive. And she said, really, you just have to work hard and you have to wear underwear, which I thought was really interesting. And I remember thinking...
You were wearing it, though.
I was at the time.
It's a prerequisite for the job.
And I remember thinking, for sure, I can't tell my parents that this internship coordinator said that was a criteria. But she was like, oh, there's some metal steps and, sometimes, and you're right above the offices. So we got to all the late. And I was like, okay, I don't know what to say about that. I'm going to forget it.
Wow.
And then I started with about 15 other interns, and I realized, wow, 15 other interns are going to come in a couple months, and they're never going to remember me. And I'm going to stick my foot in this door as hard as I can because I wanted to stay. I looked around, I was like, oh my God, I love all these jobs. I want to stay.
Like, what was your first job?
Logging tapes and getting people lunch and, bringing script pages over to the talent. So, all the beginning stuff.
You're there, you're doing kind of coffee, you're getting lunches, you're doing whatever you need to do. Then you're thinking, I need to stay here and beat out all these other interns. So you start going, I'll take any job available. Is that true?
Yes. And one of the reporters, Jeannie Wolf, who was awesome, she got all the big celebrity interviews, was looking for an assistant. Her assistant left. And I thought, of course I can do that. And so I went and I answered her phones and I drove her through Kentucky Fried Chicken and I got her lunch and I did her dry cleaning. And at some point she said, I'm too busy. I can't go cut the pieces. I need you, here's how you do it. Here's a beginning, middle, and end. Here's what it looks like. You go in the bay and cut that piece for me off of the script while I'm gone.
So in her daily job at Entertainment Tonight, she had to report on movies and review them and stuff. And your job at this point was, hey, go cut this piece together, write my voiceover, whatever I'm going to say about it, and give it to me. I'll record it, and you put it together, and that's now your job.
Well, it was not an official job. It was,
no, of course.
Let's do this behind the scenes and be quiet because you're really my sister.
So then you go into the bay to cut your first piece with a seasoned editor?
Yeah.
And what happens?
At Paramount and Entertainment Tonight at that time, in order to sit in the bay, you had to be in the Directors Guild because it was a union lot. And the editors were in a union too. And I went and I sat in and I'm sure I was wearing a ponytail with a bow and bobby socks. And he was like, anyway, when is the real person coming in? And I said, hey, it's me today. And he said, no, thank you. It's actually not. Because again, it was an opportunity for me, but for him, it was a waste of time, right? He was like, this chick is going to give me, all the wrong answers, is going to elongate my day. When am I going to get out of here?
Did he take zero direction from you?
Zero. And I started, I felt myself heating up and I was going to cry. And so I was like, I'll be right back. And I left and I went into the bathroom and I was like, my mom's Italian. I can do this. So I went back in and I schmoozed him up and he became one of my closest friends. He'll still every once in a while, he's like, I'm really sorry for that.
Is he still at Entertainment Tonight?
Everybody I know is still at Entertainment Tonight. That is a place you do not leave.
You don't leave. Right.
There.
It's hard. I mean, you figure you grow up there, you work there, you're an intern there and it's a great job. You get paid well. So you go in there, he says, you're not cutting it, little girl. You come back in, you say, yes, I am. You guys build a friendship. And now, after that, you start coming in going like, hey, I need to cut this piece. And now you're like sort of collaborating because he starts liking your gumption, right?
Well, that's my favorite part about entertainment and that I say to everyone is if you can just do your work, not take it personal, figure out where the bathroom is, come in presentable, eventually you're going to get to do whatever it is that you want to do. So I got in there, finally I kept going into the executive producer there and I was saying, I cut the pieces for Jeannie Wolf. And he was like, I know there's too much of Jeannie Wolf in the pieces of Jeannie Wolf. And I was like, she's my boss. And he was like, go try again. His name is Jim Van Messel, my mentor for 10 years. He taught me how to write stories. He taught me how to cut. And he was so brutal with me. But he really wanted me to go do the work. He was like, there's no easy way in except for doing the work. So one day they called me at 4:00 in the morning and said, hey, Bob Port called in sick today. Jim said you could come to the meeting and you can cut a piece. And I mean, I got up and I sat on, in my car for an hour and got ready and drove in shaking. I can remember gripping the wheel and shaking. And I got in and I sat in the morning meeting and everyone was like, fraud, why is she here? What's going on? And I was like, hey. and Jim Van Messel threw me such a softball. He was like, we need you to change these 3 VOs. So I changed 3 VOs. And I went in the bay and I was legit. And from that day on, he let me in and I joined the Directors Guild and I was a field producer for the next 4 or 5 years. And it was my favorite job.
Pretty amazing. I mean, you're a member of 2 of the guilds that everybody wants to be part of at this point. That's an amazing
What was the time frame there from the time you started your internship till that moment?
I was an intern for 3 or 4 months. And I think I worked for Jeannie for about a year. And then I think I started cutting the baby pieces, So I'd been there maybe a year and a half.
Wow.
But these shows, you guys are around one yourselves. These shows, there are so many people that need to be there in order to get it done.
Yeah.
That people move up very quickly. And again, if you're just there and you're passionate and you're not a troublemaker and you have some bit of creativity in you, you can keep moving. I mean, that's how during those years, I just kept going to my boss saying, hey, now I'd like to go out in the field. And he's like, go ahead. And if you can get through it, you're okay.
This is, What you don't know listening to this is that Anne is an incredible personality. She's beautiful. She walks into a room and kind of sucks the air out of it because she's got all of this energy. So I can see how they kept giving you more and more things to do, and you kept moving up really quickly. So I'm aware.
With that smile.
I'm
aware.
That's very sweet.
But,
I don't know if that's all that.
I think it's true.
I think you work hard.
I can vouch for it. I can vouch for it.
I think it's true.
I definitely see it.
Tell us about the Michael Keaton story.
It was Michael Keaton doing One Good Cop, which was in between Batman and whatever was another successful movie. So it was deemed by everybody that I worked with that One Good Cop didn't deserve talent going out on a weekend. It deserved me going out. So I got dressed in my sister's, I remember I wore my sister's jacket and her skirt and some nude hose. And I was like, I'm a grown up. And I went in and to do the interview, and I sat down, and Michael Keaton sat down, and I thought, this is the nicest guy in the whole world. And Michael Keaton looked right through me and said, hey, where's Lisa? And I said, hey, she's not here today. She's at the whatever I said, celebrity car racing thing. And he sat there like this. And then the phone rang in the room, which is like the cardinal rule is you go turn off all the phones when you're at a junket in the hotel room. Yeah. And I forgot. So then I had to get up to go turn off the phone, and my face is red, and the cameraman Rex is behind me going, hey, you forgot to unplug the phone. And I went to go walk over, and then I tripped in my sister's shoes on the cord and fell flat on the floor, and everybody was like, doing. No one knew what to do. And then again, I went to the bathroom. I called my sister, and I was like, I fell on the floor. And she's like, get in there. Those were the only 2 times that I felt that way. And anyway, I went back in, and Michael Keaton, I just kept schmoozing him and telling a joke and saying a thing. And at some point he was like, all right, well, I'll do the interview. And so he did the interview.
Did he laugh when you fell?
He was not laughing out loud, but I'm sure inside him he was like, is Lisa coming yet? Yeah. But you know what? It makes you tough. You learn not to take anything personally. And you kind of have to get yourself in the mindset of all these celebrities, right? They go out on the set, they're doing their craft, and part of their job is to do publicity. It's not
It's
fun.
boring to them.
It's
boring
annoying.
to them. Yeah, it's annoying. Absolutely.
So you kind of have to make it fun for them. You have to do your work.
It's not about you.
Yeah, you have to make it entertaining for them. Otherwise, they're like, this is not fun.
You had other experiences, like John Tesh was working on Entertainment Tonight, and he's known to be a very book smart man. Was it difficult to write copy and to fix copy with him?
These are all my greatest hits.
Really?
They're all the things that make me feel a little. I mean, John is a world-class musician. He wrote, music for the Olympics. He's super smart, but he was also, like John Tesh, like 6 whatever, and would walk around the office, and everybody was like, "Oh, he's super cool."
Was he the star of it?
Yeah, he and Mary Hart were the stars when I first started. She was the loveliest, classiest lady on earth. They were both super smart. It was very heady to be there at the time. It was the #1 entertainment show. There were no other shows like that. They were both super accomplished. But you were very naked in there because there was a speaker. It was back when they had speaker. Hello, And John, if he read your copy and it was not up to par, because he didn't write it, but nobody else knew that, and he was like, I'm not going to say something stupid. So if you wrote it and you weren't up to par, John would throw open the VO booth and come out and say, and Lewis, please come to the VO booth. And like everybody knew, like that was the walk of shame. So you'd go over and he'd say, what? This doesn't make any sense. And it's not grammatically correct. So again, you forge your relationship. Everyone's different. Everyone's like a blind date. Every actor you met, every talent you worked with, every editor who was like, what did you just say to me? It was a blind date every day. And I feel like it was the most amazing stomping ground for the rest of my life.
How long were you at Entertainment Tonight?
I was there for 9 years. The interesting thing about meeting celebrities was there's the people like the Tom Hanks and the Whoopi Goldbergs who were so kind because they had been through every roller coaster ever. Let me make you breakfast. What can I get the cameraman? What can I do?
Oh, really?
Oh. So kind, lovely, awesome people. And then there were some folks who...
Reality stars are the worst. They're divas. They're demanding. They're like, they want you to light them a certain way. I'm like, wait, you're on Jersey Shore. like I like it. It's okay, but you're not Tom Cruise.
Hey, take it easy.
Take it easy. Yeah.
So you work at Entertainment Tonight for 9 years. You work with Jim Van Messel, who is your mentor and a pioneer in magazine shows, really. Yeah. So what we're going to talk about next is Anne and a chosen few, including Jim, get recruited by another network because they want their entertainment show. So and along with Jim, move to this new network and launch Access Hollywood.
Yeah.
Tell us about that move.
Jim sort of went to a couple of us, to Lori Cantor, Lori Ender, Nancy Finley, the heads of the television department and the film department, and said, hey, I'm leaving. I can't tell you guys why. I was in New York at the time. He said, I can't tell you guys why. There's a new person who's going to come in. But I just want to let you guys know, and I'll be in touch with you. And, I said, oh, okay, well, whatever you're going to go do, I'm going to go do that with you, because I've known you since I was Bobby Sock's intern. He's the only person I worked for my whole life. And then slowly but surely, everybody went over, and it was 5 people in an office in LA, a couple people in an office in New York going like, what's the show called? And it was just like 500 titles, and we're like rejecting them all. And what are the colors going to be for ET's gold, so it should be blue. I mean, I couldn't believe that that's how a show got started. I kept looking around going, is someone going to tell us what's supposed to happen? And we interviewed
you were in
Steve
charge.
Santagati to be a reporter.
No.
Shout out to Santagati.
I would have left right then. Thank God you stuck around.
Was Santagati charming? Hang on. Was Santagati charming?
So lovely. Such a lovely boy.
Was he talented?
Yes. Well, Jeff Probst was the other person who came in that week.
Did you hire him?
We did. And Jeff was there for a little while. And Jeff's like super smart and cerebral. And he went on to go do Survivor, which is much better for him, because he would say, like, why are we asking these pithy questions of these celebrities? And I'm like, because that's what our show does. Yeah. And he was not into that.
Wow.
But a good guy.
And then Nancy O'Dell.
Actually, the 2 first hosts were different people. It was Giselle Fernandez and Larry Menti.
I don't remember Larry Menti.
They were the first year. See, that's the sad news. All the shows sort of blended into one at one point. But when we first started, there was only a couple of shows.
Well, you were part of Entertainment Tonight. Then you went over with a group of people, launched Access Hollywood, turned that into a show that's still on the air today. Yeah. And then after those shows, I think people started to think, we could do these types of shows. Now there's, a million. You started in a really cool business. You pioneered it with a bunch of other people. So congratulations.
Thank you
for having such a cool career in TV. And we're mid-career right now. So you have this great time at Entertainment Tonight. You have this great time at Access. And then you decide that it's time to move on, which a lot of people can't do in this business. By the way, I just want to ask one question. Was anyone mad at you when you left Entertainment Tonight to go to Access?
Steve Weiser, executive producer of Made in Mexico. No, he says hi. Isn't that cool? Like Steve,
guy.
He told a story to me. He said that when he worked at Access to make extra money, which sounds like him, right?
Yeah.
He was picking up clothes and delivering stuff to the people that worked on the show, and that you called him in one day and said, "Hey, man, are you
hustling?
Are you hustling a little bit behind the scenes over here?" And that he said, "Yeah."
Where's my gig?
And you said, "Good for you." And you were like, "Okay, get out of here." Just wanted to make sure I had it straight.
Well, Weiser, kind of like you, he started off, and he was telling me the story the other day. Him and I talk every morning on the drive, and he goes in really early. I go to the gym in the morning, and he was saying how opportunity just presented itself, and he said, I could do it, and nobody wanted to do something, and he said, I'll do it. And he said his stomach was in knots, and he went, and he did it, and it was awkward, but the celebrity kind of thought it was funny, so he gave him the interview, and then it was a hit, and then from that day forward, he went from down here to up here, and he's smart, and he was able to maintain, and then he just used leverage to like move his career around, but it was incredible how he went kind of like similar to what you
Dude,
your
he could
path.
sell you anything, that guy.
I've listened to this podcast, and I think that's what I admire about the podcast is letting people know it's not so hard.
Yeah.
All of it, whether it's, the music or it's legal or whatever, you just got to go put in the work and do the work. So I all these magazine shows, it was just opportunity dripping everywhere. And I think that's how the entertainment business is. You just have to find out what you're supposed to do and then do the work, which to some people is daunting.
Yeah.
Because you're like, how do I find out? Now you Google, you ask somebody, you have informational interviews, you do whatever,
Yeah.
So at the end of Access Hollywood, I was like, what else am I supposed to do now? I've done these 2 magazine shows for a long time. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I just went and I did a year of informational interviews.
Right.
And tried to find out what the rest of the industry was, because I had no idea. I had only worked on these shows.
By the way, I've said this many times. It's not easy to go from a magazine show to being an executive. not a lot of people have done it. It's a very difficult jump. When you went to E, you hadn't been an executive in that way. Someone had to trust you. That person was Carrie McCool. And you went out there, and one of the first people you met before there was a Kardashian show was
Kourtney was on
Kourtney
one
Kardashian.
of our shows. Yeah,
She was
really?
on one of Anne's shows, which was called Cattle Drive?
Filthy Rich Cattle Drive
Right.
with Joe Simpson.
With Joe Simpson. Is that
I
how it is?
remember that.
Do you remember that
show?
show?
Yeah.
So you did that. Courtney's on there. How long were you at E? Do you remember?
I was just there 4 years, but
4 years.
Again, just another piece of it is you got to get a friend who will let you in.
Right.
So I had been passed over during that year that I took off for plenty of jobs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because people said, "Oh, you're the magazine girl." And I was like, "How can I be the magazine girl already? I've only been in the industry for like 10 years. How am I the magazine girl?" But you get pegged.
Yeah.
You know, whatever else you do, you're pegged at it. And so I was passed on a ton, and Carrie is a good, smart girl. And through our friendship, she said, I don't care about what you were before. Come in.
Yeah.
You're smart. So you've got to find people who believe in you and who come in. And our relationship for all these years, whatever she's needed, whatever I've needed, we're all like, come in. You know, when you find those people who let you in the door, you cultivate those relationships. You have a loyalty.
Yeah.
You give back when you can, and you're always there for one another.
Well, Carrie McCool is a super, super talented
she
executive, and you guys ended up working together, which was awesome. You had been a producer most of your life, so when you went over to E and you had to do shows, you were pretty much producing them as an executive, which is not always the way it works, right? You're just out there like, okay, rolling up your sleeves and actually producing.
I think that's great.
Producing
I think
the
executives
shows.
should be able to. They should be able to do that, because how do you get to that level without having ever done that?
And then the mouse came knocking. What happened at Disney?
They were looking for somebody who was from the outside world to come in and help them find the next Oprah. That was the part of the charge. And
Good
I was
luck.
like, please don't say that. Find the next Oprah. That's not a sentence that
They still
should
haven't
be.
found the next
No,
Oprah.
she is the one and only. But it was in the syndication area. It was in the daytime area. It was also cable and network. It was there. There was a studio there at ABC.
Right.
But the interesting thing about Disney was I went in just fired up of like, let's find the next great show. Let's find the next great show, because where I had worked before, right, was all about a hit show.
Right.
And I mentioned like, hey, I know the Kardashians would be interested in doing a television show. And someone took me aside over in the corner and said, okay, I think you got to look at your paycheck
Stop saying
and see where you
Kardashians,
work.
right.
And
Yeah.
this is the Walt Disney Company. And they put me in a program for a year. It was a mentee program. Anne Sweeney, who was epic and who's Bob Iger's number 2 at the time, was my mentor.
The number one
Wow.
most powerful woman in Hollywood for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
Amazing woman. And so once a month I would go meet with her, and I would sit in, it's secretly in some of her staff meetings, and you couldn't tell anybody what was going on, but I got such an education of, hey, guess what? That's a brand, and no show is going to define a brand. It's already defined. Walt Disney defined that brand. Right. So you could have a hit show, but if it's tawdry or hurting the brand, who cares? So I was so grateful because I don't think I'd worked anywhere where anything but the show was the brand. So I got the weight of the Walt Disney Company. I loved working there. I got that filter, and I had a great 10 years there.
But what you got out of Disney is how much people care about the brand. You're walking in with your ears and your sweatshirt and your shoes, right?
Got
The
a
whole
bunch of
thing.
Mickey hoodies.
Bunch of Mickey hoodies. But you're just to be clear, so that people understand, your division handled
daytime.
Yeah,
so it was The View. It was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. At the time, was At the Movies with Ebert.
Oh yeah,
he hadn't passed away yet. It was an amazing
Ebert and Roper,
show
that's right.
to oversee. And then it was
Regis and Kelly. Was it still Regis and Kelly? It was.
It was, and that was a New York show, and I was based in LA. So if they needed help, who might be the next person on it, we would help with that. And each year we were trying to come up with what's the big new daytime pilot. We did some primetime stuff, and we piloted a lot of stuff. We piloted Sherry Shepherd, and she ended up going on The View. We piloted Aisha Tyler. She ended up going on The Talk.
Steve Harvey. Oh, you didn't pilot Steve Harvey, but you did suggest him.
I did, and they passed on.
They
Steve
passed
Harvey.
on Steve Harvey.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, it's not a mouse thing.
I was his makeup artist back in the day. 2000.
Really?
Yeah, 2000. It was me and the Nation of Islam. Seriously, I rolled with his crew.
How was that?
It was cool. He was cool. I got funny story. His makeup artist didn't show. I was a staff artist. My first job. I hadn't even touched anybody's makeup yet. The EIC came in, it was a friend of mine, and said, I'm going to give you an opportunity. You want to do Steve's makeup? I said, yeah, I'll try it. So I went in there, did it. He liked it, said, made a deal, and I became his guy.
Dude, you
That's
got talent.
a big deal.
You got talent in lots of different
opportunity.
areas.
Yeah.
Opportunities.
Right? That's you got to just be ready.
Opportunity and attitude.
Yeah.
If you want to work, if you're willing to work, and and put a smile on your face, I'm gonna get you with that one. You'll get opportunity, but you got to put in the work.
I think the theme to this show is definitely you can do anything. You have to be willing to step up to the plate. You know, a lot of people don't step up. A lot of people don't take their swings. I think it's important to go in the restroom, have a little cry, call your family member, and then get back out there and do what you got to do. So you spend 10 years at Disney. You work on a bunch of great shows. You left Disney. What's amazing is then you went off, opened your own company called Roberts Media, and ended up doing Disney shows.
It's true.
Right? So what are your shows now? What are you working on now?
I have the sweetest show called Disney Fairytale Weddings, and it's in its second season. It started out at Freeform with Carrie McCool.
Right. Is that amazing?
Full
Carrie
circle.
McCool,
Full circle.
Now Carrie is at Disney.
Yes. So when I was at Disney, I got to buy shows from her. She was running someone else's company. And she was running Nigel Lithgow's company, the guy who's American Idol EP. And I got to buy shows from her. And then when she went to Disney, and then she said, "Hey, here's this Disney show. I'd love for you to do it for me." She created Disney Fairytale Weddings. Right. Yeah.
And tell us about Disney Fairytale Weddings. What happens in Disney Fairytale Weddings?
You know what? We follow people having Disney weddings all over the world. And you would think that means somebody's having a Star Wars wedding or a Snow White wedding. It's really just they're having these big, epic weddings at the parks with the parks as a backdrop. And then we add something spectacular to it, whether that's Pentatonics or Jason Derulo or, you know, a performance or a surprise or a dress and sort of pump it up. So it almost becomes a variety show. And
you work with a bunch of great people at Disney, right? You work with people from the parks. You work with people from the networks. You work with people from the weddings division. And they're not all mixed up together, right? They're all separate divisions.
Different divisions, yeah. They Kevin Young, he oversees anything that gets shot at the park, which is a really big deal to step on the park grounds. It's very hollowed grounds to shoot. They don't let a lot of people shoot there. He's with us on every single shoot. The weddings team, they put on a big wedding. I work with Simon Lithgow, who is Nigel's son, also worked on American Idol.
These are a bunch of fancy people.
Yeah. Simon is very fancy. He's made the show very fancy, and he pulls in all his American Idol friends. And so you think you could dance friends and musicians. And again, I just keep going back to, you know, it's a small community and we're all trading on all of our relationships and giving back to one another. I see him. He'll hire somebody who hired him, you know, before. Everybody does it. You guys work together in different capacities, but you've got to have those relationships because those are the people who are going to be like, come back.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
So, well, Disney Weddings is a big hit. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I know that you're doing other things. We don't have to talk about everything, but your company is doing other things, some things with Disney, some things without Disney. Simon's a very fun guy. I've met him. He's, you could tell why he's a great showrunner. You know, he's got this great energy and he talks, it's almost like he's a celebrity.
Right.
You know, he goes out to get his shots ready and he's like, he does a stand-up routine for 15 minutes and then you shoot the scene. Yeah. He's tremendously talented.
He enjoys it.
Yeah. And you got to.
Yeah. I don't think any of us should be doing this if you don't enjoy it.
Right.
Did you ever revisit the writing? Because you said early on you wrote. Did you ever want to revisit that? And was it like screenwriting? Was it TV? Was it, you said poetry, but what other types of writing?
Well, I wrote the host copy for a couple years. I'll tell you, after being out in the field and putting pieces together in the edit bays and working with talent, it didn't feel enough for me. So in my heart, I think like, you know, I'm probably not, my calling is probably not as a pure writer because the pure writers who I know are like, until they finish something. They've got something in them and it comes out. This is a writer's medium, you know?
Yeah.
Scripted is such a cool world. And I have a couple of scripted things, but I mean, if I was a writer,
yeah,
right, you rule the world. it's pretty amazing if you can write and direct and act.
Yeah.
But I think writing's harder than you think. In my mind, I always, I think, well, when I retire, I'm going to write a screenplay. Writing a script for a film or a sitcom is probably got to feel pretty cool and heady.
My buddy, Weiser, who worked at Access, and he, I talked about this last time. He wanted to be a screenwriter. Right. So when he was at Access, he was writing, he was reading, he was doing everything. That's what he wanted to be. And he saw how tough it was. And so he said, forget this. I'm going to figure out another way to make money. And he did. He got it. Well, the producing took off, right. And then the money came in, and it took a back seat. And I only found this out the last day of production. I went into his house late at night. He invited me in, of course, and his wife was there, and we were drinking.
Are you sure you didn't sneak in?
I didn't sneak in. He said, hey, come inside. I was beat. You're hungry? I'll make you something to eat. He went to the restaurant. He went to his room or whatever, and the wife tells me, she goes, this is really great what you've done for Steve. And I said, shooting at his house all day and taking up his time? She goes, no. And she told me, she said, because he had mentioned, he goes, I wrote a script. I put it in some festivals. I did pretty well, but, it was just too much. I did a short film. I said, oh, so you've had this in you. And I've been at him for a long time about making a movie, about financing or finding money. And he kept shooting me down left and right. But the landscape changed, and he sees an opportunity now. And so that's kind of, and he saw my tenacity. He said he goes, you're just not going to quit. And I'm not. I have no choice. It's like in Raging Bull when he goes, I got no choice.
I do think if you don't have that thing.
Yeah.
For it, like Mark for raising money or packaging things or taking something and pitching it until he's like, all of a sudden, something that Mark's done is a thing. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
How did you make that happen? The rainmaker of it all. How did that happen? That's what he's passionate about. You're passionate about your movie. Like there isn't a way you aren't going to make that happen.
But I started Weiser back on this road, his wife said.
Oh,
that's really cool.
That's
I'm
really cool.
And I'm sure he'll end up doing more things because of the work he's doing with you. What I find really fascinating about this conversation is that TV, film, digital has all sort of melded into one. Before, when you were a film producer, you usually were only a film producer or TV or whatever. But now, especially you and your new company, you're doing non-scripted, you're doing scripted. But those are things that, as you get going in the business, you end up staying in a lane that's satisfying enough in the business. And then you sort of give up on things that maybe were your original dream. But, you evolve in this business and you can work on different things. So that's really cool. I want to get to a couple of stories before we finish up. Okay. When I was a young producer and I would call Entertainment Tonight, and I'd call Anne, and I don't know her, and I'm like, hey, this is, Mark Roberts. I'm a friend of Mike Lawrence. Anyway, we produced this film, and I'd love to get it on Entertainment Tonight. And she goes, what's the film? And I'm like, well, it's this film. It's called Bravo. It stars Carlos Gallardo. It's the guy who was in El Mariachi. And she stops me. She's like, okay, hold up. She's like, yeah, I can't put that on the show, boo-boo. She goes, but I like you a lot. You're a lot of fun. I'm glad that you're working. Call me when you do your next movie. Let me know who's in it. Maybe I'll get you on the show.
And you guys never met at this point?
We hadn't met, no.
Okay.
So then I do a film called East Side. This is 98.
I remember that.
Or so, right? I do a film called East Side starring Mario Lopez.
As a gangster.
And I call Anne, right? I call Anne and I'm like, hey, it's Mark Roberts. How are you? I'm doing this other movie. And she's all, what's the movie? She's always very positive and excited, right? What's the movie? I said, I'm doing a film called East Side with Mario Lopez, and I named some other actors. And she's all, okay, I can cover that. She goes, so I'm going to send someone out to interview, Mario and be on and have a set visit or whatever. So I'm all, great, awesome. So she sends someone, and it's this really great guy. His name's Larry Struber. He's the producer for the day. He walks over. He's got this really cool green leather jacket on. He's like, where's Mark Roberts? So I introduced myself. I'm here. He interviews Mario, but then he goes, hey, I got to interview you. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. And Larry Struber was so cool. He says to me, look, here's what we got to do. For you to actually make it on the show, you have to make a joke about Mario being on Pacific Blue and then say whatever you want. So I was like, okay, like what? He was like, say, hey, so Mario Lopez, our Pacific Blue guy, right? Yeah. I was like, really? Just like that? He goes, just like that. I was like, okay. Hey, so Mario Lopez, our Pacific Blue guy. And then I said, we're excited to have him. And I said whatever I said. And that weekend, I was on the show on Entertainment Tonight so I call Ann on Monday and I'm like, Ann, thank you for doing that. That was so fun. And we started a conversation where we ended up being friends, and she ended up sending a crew to my next movie, which was called Poor White Trash, which Addis directed, and we became buddies. But it was awesome that she took the calls and would be like, yeah, and it was real fast. Like if she didn't like it, she couldn't do it. If she did like it, it was real fast. But it was neat. It was just like in the movies.
Yeah. Then she needed to see what she looked like, so she made her producer, make sure you get this guy on camera, because I want to see what's...
Why did you get me on camera?
Because I just told you, fool, don't you know?
Is that why? Because you wanted to see what I looked like?
Well, because my best friend from 6th grade was friends with your friend who put us together, and I thought, you know what? Like, we got to give back. People did a lot of nice things for me when I was little. Right. And I always felt like you got to give back.
That's very sweet. And I got to tell you, that Monday morning...
You had a really nice voice.
Thank you.
You do. You have a good voice.
Thank you.
Right?
My mom tells me, too. She goes, she thought you were younger than me. I said, hey, take it easy.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.
The Monday after I was on Entertainment Tonight, I was actually meeting with an investor, and I walked into the meeting cold, right? I hadn't met him. We had only talked on the phone. I walked into the meeting, and he was like, wait a minute. You were on Entertainment Tonight this weekend.
Guess what? Funded.
Guess
Bam.
what?
Just like that.
He funded 3 of my movies.
And do you see what you did for Mark?
All right. So last story. Right. If you're a filmmaker, this is going to be big.
This is it.
This is going to be big.
And talk about just hanging in there.
Right. So towards the end of your tenure at Entertainment Tonight, you're in New York. You have a small crew of people, and your PA is
Eddie Burns.
Ed Burns is the PA, an office PA.
That's one of the greatest independent film stories of all times, but go ahead.
Right. So you tell the story. What happened? Like, how do you meet him? How do you, like, what's happening in the office during that time? Like, what's going on?
So it was a small office. There was a couple field producers who worked there. This is in New York, and Eddie was one of the PAs. Actually, Larry Struber was a PA.
Was he really?
Too.
Oh, my God.
And so Eddie was the sweetest, funniest guy with the thickest accent in the world. And Eddie had a passion for writing. Yeah. And we always knew the stories. You know, you're waiting around in between a shoot and you're sitting there with the audio guy and the camera guy and Eddie and whoever else. And you're telling the story. Where are you with your script? What are you doing? And he was writing Brothers McMullen. Yeah. And we were all humongous cheerleaders of him and his girlfriend, Maxine Bond, who ended up being the star of the movie. And Eddie was like, I submitted it to every person, every producer, everything. And
every agent.
Everything.
Every production company.
You know, and we all sat around, everybody gave their thoughts. And, you know, the other producer there, Vinny Rubino, who was older than me and had more connections in New York, he was like, hey, get it to him. Every one of us, we had all of our comments. Again, we're all a bunch of kids.
By the way,
know what we're talking about.
Passed on by everybody. Yeah. Everyone passed on this script. Okay, so finally he said, I'm going to do it on myself. He raised money. I want to say, I'm fuzzy on the story, but I want to say like people from The Office gave him money. Our audio guy worked on it. Gus. Yeah. You know, I think Vinny worked on it. Everybody helped. Camera guys.
That was what I heard. That's back in the day. I remember hearing that he worked on a news show. He borrowed the equipment and he utilized all of his connections, like using audio. They were all his friends. They wanted to see it get done, so they did.
So he gets a rough cut. He finishes Brothers McMullen. He gets a rough cut. These guys get an assignment to go interview
Robert Redford.
They get an assignment to go interview Robert Redford. And of course, you put Eddie on.
Yeah, we're all concocting. We're like, there's 5 of us here. We're in charge. Yeah. Like, of course you're going on that shoot. And I remember thinking in the back of my mind, is that crossing the line? But I had only had this one job. And I was like, babe, is that crossing? I don't know. And so Eddie was going to go and he was going to slip him the tape. And we were also nervous. I don't even remember what happened at the interview.
Well, you guys did the interview, but as the story goes, and by the way, you could look this up online in Google, and it's the same story. Robert Redford went to the elevator, and then you guys pushed Eddie.
Well, Eddie went out to the elevator. I don't know that we pushed him, but he got out there, and he handed him the tape. And the door, he said, thank you. I'm an aspiring filmmaker, and I made this film, and I submitted it to Sundance, and I'd love for you to see it. And Robert Redford said, thank you. I'll make sure somebody sees it. And Eddie came in and we were like high five and hysterical and we drank. And Eddie had no money at the time. He had put all his money, had maxed out every single one of his credit cards. We were all buying him lunches, to survive. And we were like, it's going to happen. And then months went by. And then finally somebody wrote him back from Sundance and said, you're accepted.
You've been accepted to the Sundance Film Festival.
Nutty.
Yeah. And then they said, are you done with the movie? And he said, yeah, I'm done. And they said, great. So, we'll you have to deliver your print by a certain time. He was $50,000 short of finishing that movie, and somehow, did you guys help him? Did people at the office? Did his family? Like, how did you? Do you know?
I think
how
he raised more money.
Yeah.
By then, I think he had a producer's attention because of Sundance. But the thing about Eddie is Eddie was an incredible storyteller. That's what I forgot to say. You'd be on a shoot and we'd be waiting 3 hours, and Eddie would tell you a great story about his brothers and his dad and his family and that block that he lived on, and it all got into Brothers from Mulholland.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about write what you know.
Right.
I mean, he just kept us all entertained. It's why we loved him so much. And that story went in his first 3 movies: Brothers from Mulholland, She's the One. And we all followed him. Eddie's our guy, even though I haven't seen him in years. We root for him.
That's an incredible story. And it just goes to show you that, you have to rely on the people around you, trust the people around you, and hope that, you get an opportunity, and don't miss out on the opportunity to pitch someone your project, no matter what you think, how many times you've been turned down or people said they didn't like it or whatever. But that's a really inspiring and interesting story, that he was a PA at Entertainment Tonight, and then he became a talented actor and director and producer and filmmaker. So he went to Sundance. He won the jury award. He won everything.
It was crazy.
They released his movie in theaters, and then he got the opportunity to do the second one, which was called She's the One, which then you did the press kit
for. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. We just were, we were so proud of it. And then it happened. And I go back to, everybody starts out somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Whether you work at the Schubert Theater, whatever you start out at. But again, you stay in it, and eventually your stuff happens. I'm going to be at your premiere someday for your movie.
Oh,
yeah.
Ravens.
Hey, thank you for being here today. Thank you for coming on. I know that it was hard.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
It was very difficult
I'm not
to
a
get you on the show.
filmmaker, but I said some couple of filmy things.
The answer is, you don't have to be a filmmaker anymore.
No.
It's all about product. You still can end up in this great, wonderful, magical place of show business, entertaining people and telling stories and helping people along the way. That is an amazing story about Ed Burns. He is one of our finest filmmakers, and it all started as a PA on Entertainment Tonight. Now, whether or not he would have made it anyway, who knows? But man, the chance opportunity to see and shake hands with Robert Redford and say, like, hey, sir, would you mind taking a look at my movie, may have made the difference there. So thank you for being here. Thank you for inspiring other people. Thank you for sharing your story, because I'm a big fan of it. And we'll see you next time on Let's Get Into It.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Wow, that's a lot of words.
I know, but you know what? People are
You'll
going
make it go.
People are going
fix
to
it in
eat
the
that.
edit.
No, they will.
You'll fix it in
That's
the
good.
edit.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.